Besties.
Joining us right now is former Texas Congressman and former Republican presidential candidate himself, Ron Paul. Sir, good to see you. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you. Nice to be with you.
Well, we've been all eager to talk with you this morning on Fed Day. Of course, the Federal Reserve is expected to raise interest rates today as the president-elect's policies are expected to trigger some economic growth. What's your take on the Federal Reserve coming out today saying they will, in fact, raise interest rates?
Well, everybody expects it, so it won't be news. The big news would be if they didn't do it. That would be a shocker. But, my position on central economic planning is I don't like it. I don't like it when one person can do it, and that's the chairman of the Federal Reserve. But everybody hangs on it because they have to. But, yes, they're going to raise interest rates, and they may do it once or twice later on. But I think the big news is what the report you just gave. Sales were down, the prices were up. Right. That's what's coming. It already exists. That's why people are so unhappy. That's why they're demanding increases in the minimum wage, and that's why people have 2 jobs. But this is a story. Everybody forgot about the 1970s, but we're moving into that era. I think we're going to see a lot more price inflation. I think you're going to see a weak economy. I think it's totally out of control. The Fed, central economic fails, and if you just look at what's happened since the beginning of this century, we've had, the NASDAQ, the housing bubble, and we've had this failure of just printing tons of money that didn't work, and now they're going to go to spending money, and they don't even hardly talk about the debt.
Well, I think you make a really good point. Yeah, because the retail sales number was way weaker than expected. We were expecting up 0.3%. It's up 0.1%. Meanwhile, inflation has risen because that was up 0.4% on the Producer Price Index. Do you think that changes with new fiscal policy coming from President Trump once he's in office? Lower taxes and spending on infrastructure and a rollback of regulations. Does that even things out?
No, I think it'll make it worse, because the government's spending the money and you don't have the market determining what's happening. So, yes, they're going to, the money that they've created since 2008 and 2009 is sitting around. Now it's going to start moving in, and velocity is going to pick up, and it'll be out of control. I mean, can you imagine, maybe the price of concrete's going to skyrocket. They're going to build new roads and new bridges, and copper is liable to go up because of this. So I think prices are going to go up, and the money's going to be spent according to political reasons and not because of business decisions. So we want the government out of it. We want people to save money, create capital, but capital cannot come from the Federal Reserve working with a computer. That's the fallacy, and that's why 0 rates of interest didn't work, because they weren't realistic. People know it, and now they say, well, how do we move back to it? Well, it's not easy to move back, because what you want to do is get out of the way and let the market work. But we do not work on a free market principle. We do not have sound money. It's all manipulated, and we have one person making these decisions, and I think it's way too much power for the chairman of the Federal Reserve Board to have so much power, and I think people are starting to realize this. When I started talking about this, people are, well, what's this thing about the Federal Reserve? But just think in the last 6, 8 years, people say, hey, they kept the interest rates too low too long. Obviously, they did. And they didn't do a good job in getting us out of the recession. So now the Fed is throwing up their hands, and they say, it's up to Congress. They need to spend money. And they'll print and the Fed will accommodate. They will print the money when the debt goes up, because there will be a limit to how much these interest rates will be allowed to go up. Because just think of the consequence of rising interest rates on the cost of our debt. Billions and billions of dollars. If interest rates to the government goes up 1%, you're talking about big-time increase in the deficit, because we'll be paying interest.
Right, Congressman, you bring up some great points here, especially because the Fed does have $4 trillion on their balance sheet. They undertook unprecedented monetary actions, but now we're starting to see a new regime come in. You've got actually President-elect Trump going to be nominating at least 2 people to be Fed board governors. You've also have the chairperson is going to be leaving probably at the end of 2017. So is there a little confidence that you're having on the new administration to rein in the Fed and actually have government pull back a lot of their government waste, given the fact that he's having business people come in that have talked about having smaller departments, smaller government?
Yeah, I do have a little bit of hope. I don't have any hope for the Federal Reserve, because they're incapable of doing something that they don't know how to do. They don't know what the interest rate should be. But if you say they're there for the purpose of reining in the Fed, that's very good. I have a lot more hope in the area, not on fiscal policy. That's a big negative. But the idea of lowering taxes is great. But if you lower taxes and not cut spending, I mean, this administration plans to massively increase infrastructure spending. And for some reason, they think that we just, even though we spend as much money as 7 other countries for our military, they want to increase it. We have to rebuild it. We have to have a strong military. Well, you know, that's just more Keynesian. You know, the other day they mentioned about cutting, and Trump correctly said, maybe we ought to cut the F-35, which is a worthless airplane. It billions, as a matter of fact, into trillions of dollars. It's built in 45 states, and what will it do for jobs? Well, that's Keynesianism. You spend money for jobs, so the Republicans are just as guilty at Keynesian intervention as are the liberals who do it domestically and say, well, it's up to the government to create these jobs. No, it's up to the market to create these jobs. It's up to the government to give us a free market, low taxes and less regulations, and some of that Trump is advocating. And along with Maria's prediction and telling people to buy stocks, we've had a fantastic time. So I think we have to give Maria a lot of credit for this stock market thing, because she called it correctly in the middle of the night.
Thank you, Congressman. That's right. I saw you in the green room that night, and we were, you know what, when the market was down 800 points on election night, I just couldn't understand why people were upset given his economic plan. I thought lower taxes and rollback of regulations, that's a beautiful thing for earnings. I want to buy this market with both hands.
Well, very good. Did a good job.
Also, congrats on Liberty Report actually getting 60,000 followers. I think that's a great thing, so congratulations on that.
Well, thank you very much. We have fun doing it, and people are watching.
And they sure are. You're really resonating. Congressman, it's good to see you again. Thanks so much for the time this morning. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Congressman Ron Paul joining us.